Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. It's Asterisk, a family man selling his truck online, a test drive that turned deadly, and a case that would shock all of Canada. This chilling story begins with Tim Bosma, a 32-year-old husband and father, from Ancaster, Ontario. In May 2013, Bosma listed his Dodge Ram truck for sale online, hoping for a simple transaction. When two men arrived at his home under the pretense of taking the truck for a test drive, Bosma joined them. He never returned. What followed was a frantic search, massive media attention, and a community gripped by fear and disbelief. The disappearance of Tim Bosma rattled the quiet suburb and captured national headlines. This was not just another missing person case. It was rare, shocking, and brutal. Crimes of this nature were nearly unheard of in such a peaceful area, which made the public response even more intense. Communities rallied, police expanded their efforts, and the media covered every detail. When Bosma's burned remains were eventually discovered on a rural property, it became clear this was a premeditated and callous act. The story revealed a disturbing glimpse into the minds of the perpetrators and raised important questions about safety, trust, and the hidden dangers in everyday interactions. Tim Bosma was a devoted family man, deeply loved by those who knew him. He lived in Ancaster, a quiet suburban community within the city of Hamilton, Ontario. At 32 years old, he was a husband to Charlene Bosma and a proud father to their two-year-old daughter. Tim was known for his easygoing nature, sense of humor, and strong work ethic. He was someone who could light up a room with a joke or lend a hand without hesitation. Friends and neighbors described him as dependable and kind-hearted, a man who truly valued the simple, important things in life. Tim worked in the construction industry and was involved in his local church, where he often volunteered. He and his wife were active members of their community, frequently attending local events and gatherings. Their lives were ordinary in the best possible way, rooted in family, faith, and friendships. For the Bosmas, Ancaster offered a peaceful environment to raise their daughter, surrounded by the support of a close-knit community. Tim's tragic fate struck especially hard because of who he was. Not just a name in the news, but a genuine, caring individual who represented the very heart of his community. On the evening of May 6, 2013, Tim Bosma set out to do something that seemed completely routine: sell his truck. Like many others, he had listed his black Dodge Ram pickup truck online, using a common classified site to attract potential buyers. That night, two men contacted him, expressing interest in taking the truck for a test drive. Tim was cautious. He made sure his wife knew the plan and even joked earlier that day about how weird it was to go on a test drive with strangers. Still, wanting to make the sale, he agreed to meet them at his home in Ancaster. Around 9 p.m., the two men arrived. Witnesses later described one of them as tall and well-dressed, while the other remained more in the background. Tim, being the kind and trusting person he was, got into the truck with the two men and drove off. It was supposed to be a short ride around the neighborhood, something that should have taken 15 to 20 minutes at most. But minutes turned into hours, and Tim never came home. Charlene Bosma, his wife, quickly became worried. As the night went on with no word from Tim, her concern turned into panic. By early morning, she had contacted the police and reported him missing. What made the situation immediately suspicious was that Tim's cell phone was turned off, and no one could reach him. Surveillance footage from the neighborhood captured the truck driving away with the three men inside. The two potential buyers had left their vehicle, a red SUV, parked near the Bosma home, something that would later prove crucial in the investigation. Tim's sudden disappearance shocked not only his family but the entire community. In a matter of hours, a normal evening had turned into a nightmare. While Charlene made an emotional public plea for his safe return, and the police launched a full-scale investigation. What started as a simple attempt to sell a truck would soon unravel into one of the most disturbing and widely followed criminal cases in recent Canadian history. As soon as Tim Bosma was reported missing, the Hamilton police took the case seriously. His sudden disappearance during a routine truck sale raised immediate red flags. Investigators understood that time was critical, and they mobilized quickly. Within the first 24 hours, police began canvassing the area, gathering surveillance footage, and speaking with neighbors who might have seen or heard anything unusual. Tim Bosma made a tearful and urgent plea during a televised press conference, asking anyone with information to come forward. Her words resonated across the country, and public sympathy quickly turned into action. The community rallied. Volunteers helped distribute missing person posters, and local businesses offered support. The media picked up the story, and national attention grew. Social media exploded with posts about Tim's disappearance, and the hashtag #FindTimBosma began trending. With the public now fully engaged, tips began to pour in. Witnesses recalled seeing a black Dodge Ram being driven out of Ancaster that night. Police released a description of the vehicle and asked people to be on the lookout. Early on, investigators identified a crucial clue. The suspects had left behind a red SUV near the Bosma home. Tracing that vehicle led police to a known associate of criminal activity, which opened new leads. They also tracked the GPS and phone records linked to Tim's cell phone, which showed unusual movement patterns after he disappeared. These digital breadcrumbs became vital in reconstructing the suspect's route and narrowing down locations to search. Meanwhile, Tim's truck was still missing, and its absence added to the growing mystery. Police widened their search area and followed up on every tip related to sightings of a similar vehicle. The public's help, combined with swift investigative work, now soon led detectives to focus on a man named Dellen Millard, a wealthy young man from a prominent aviation family. As suspicion mounted, the investigation began shifting from a missing person case to something much darker. Just days after Tim Bosma's disappearance, the investigation reached a major turning point. On May 10, 2013, police arrested 27-year-old Dellen Millard, a wealthy and seemingly privileged young man from Toronto. Millard came from a well-known family. He was the heir to Millard Air, a private aviation company started by his grandfather. On the surface, he lived a life of comfort and success, but beneath that image was something far more disturbing. His arrest shocked the public. How could someone from such a powerful, wealthy background be connected to a case like this? Millard was identified through the red SUV left near the Bosma home and through phone records that placed him near the scene. Police quickly linked him to the truck sale inquiry and began searching his properties, including a farm he owned near Waterloo, Ontario. That's where the investigation took its darkest turn. On May 14, 2013, police announced they had found what they believed to be human remains on Millard's farm. The remains were discovered inside an industrial incinerator known as the Eliminator, hidden on the property. Tragically, the remains were burned beyond recognition. But forensic analysis later confirmed they belonged to Tim Bosma. Shortly after, another man was arrested, 25-year-old Mark Smich, friend and associate of Millard's. Smich, from Oakville, had a criminal history and was known to police. Together, the two had planned and carried out the killing, all for the thrill of stealing a truck. Investigators believe Bosma was killed within hours of the test drive, shot in his own vehicle, and then taken to the farm where his body was incinerated in a calculated attempt to destroy evidence. As details emerged, so did more troubling revelations about Dellen Millard. He wasn't just a spoiled heir with bad intentions, he was a deeply disturbed individual. Police began reviewing other suspicious deaths connected to him, including that of his father, Wayne Millard, who had died under mysterious circumstances months earlier. Initially ruled a suicide, Wayne's death would later be reclassified as a homicide, and Dellen would be charged and convicted in that case as well. He was also eventually linked to the murder of his former girlfriend, Laura Babcock, who had disappeared in 2012. The arrest of Millard and Smich not only cracked the Bosma case wide open, but also exposed a pattern of manipulative and violent behavior that spanned years. What began as a missing person case quickly evolved into a harrowing story of premeditated murder, privilege gone unchecked, and a chilling absence of remorse. The breakthrough in the investigation brought a measure of closure to the Bosma family, but it also raised haunting questions about how such evil could exist so close to home. The trial of Dellen Millard and Mark Smich began in 2016, 3 years after Tim Bosma's murder. Both men were charged with first-degree murder, a charge that indicated the killing was planned and deliberate. The courtroom was packed with media, supporters of the Bosma family, and a public eager for justice. What unfolded during the proceedings revealed the depth of cruelty and calculation behind the crime. The Crown laid out a chilling timeline, supported by an overwhelming amount of evidence. GPS data from Millard's phone and from the truck's stolen navigation system placed the suspects in key locations. In the aftermath of the trial and guilty verdicts, the reaction from both the Bosma family and the public was emotional and profound. Charlene Bosma, who had become the voice and strength of the family throughout the entire ordeal, gave a powerful and heartbreaking statement. She spoke of the unimaginable loss of her husband, the pain of raising their daughter without her father, and the deep scars left by the cruelty of the crime. Charlene's composure in the face of tragedy moved the country. Her words weren't filled with hatred, but with a quiet strength, reminding people of the humanity that had been stolen from her family. The community response mirrored this pain. Across Ancaster and the wider Hamilton area, there was a strong wave of grief, anger, and support. Vigils were held, memorials created, and people across Canada mourned with the Bosmas. What made this tragedy resonate so deeply was how ordinary the situation had been, something any family might experience. Father trying to sell his truck should not end in murder. The randomness of the crime shook people to their core. Tim Bosma's murder also sparked a national conversation about the risks involved in online transactions. Many Canadians began to question the safety of meeting strangers through platforms like Kijiji or Craigslist. Police departments across the country issued new safety guidelines encouraging the public to meet in safe zones, bring another person, and avoid allowing strangers into private vehicles or homes. Tim's story, though horrifying, led to greater awareness and changes in behavior, helping to prevent others from facing similar dangers. In the end, while justice was served, the Bosma family's loss remained permanent. But their grace and courage, along with the public's determination to learn from this tragedy, ensured that Tim Bosma would never be forgotten. Tim Bosma's tragic death left behind a powerful legacy that reshaped how Canadians think about trust, safety, and community. In the wake of the crime, police departments across the country began introducing designated safe exchange zones for online transactions, well-lit, monitored areas near police stations where people could meet to buy or sell items. These initiatives were a direct response to what happened to Tim and were meant to prevent similar tragedies. Signs were posted, awareness campaigns launched, and people began taking more precautions when meeting strangers through online platforms. Beyond these safety measures, the case sparked deeper national reflection. It forced Canadians to confront how a simple act of letting someone test drive your vehicle could be exploited with devastating consequences. Yet out of this senseless tragedy came resilience. The Bosma family's grace, especially Charlene's dignity and strength, inspired many. The community's outpouring of support showed that even in the face of horror, kindness and solidarity could endure. The ripple effects also reached Canada's broader criminal justice conversations. The case raised questions about how privilege, entitlement, and mental instability intersect with violent crime. It led to discussions on the adequacy of sentencing laws, support for victims' families, and the importance of digital evidence in modern investigations. While Tim Bosma's life was stolen far too soon, his story continues to shape public awareness, influence safety policy, remind people across the country of the need to balance openness with caution. His legacy is one of love, loss, and a nation that chose to learn and protect in his memory. Tim Bosma's story is one that stays with you, a reminder of how quickly a moment of trust can turn into tragedy, and how a community's strength can shine through even the darkest times. As we reflect on this heartbreaking case, we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on the investigation, the trial, or the lasting impact of this crime on public safety? Share your thoughts in the comments below respectfully, and let's continue the conversation. If you found this story important and want to explore more true crime cases that matter, consider subscribing to the channel. Your support helps us tell these stories with the depth and care they deserve. And if you want to dive deeper, Be sure to check out our coverage of the Laura Babcock case, another disturbing chapter in Dellen Millard's criminal history, or our video on how safe exchange zones are changing the way we buy and sell online. Thanks for watching, and stay safe.